Youth sports, historically and still today largely, is run by small business owners that are running low margin businesses who at some point are going to be looking for an exit. At some point are going to be looking to scale their business because it's America and that's what we all want to do.
All right, we are back for another episode of Under the Number. Today, I'm joined by Mark Dvoroznak and Carrie Gamper, the co-founders of Base Sports Group. Thanks for joining me, guys. Congratulations on your recent raise. That was the most recent big milestone for Base, $2.5 million earlier this spring. Why did you decide to go out and raise some money?
I'll start. I think from a company standpoint, Carrie and I have, really focused on, no pun intended, but building a really strong base to our organization, really being able to prove out the value of what we're building in market. And we just continue to see as the market evolved, the need for our services, the amount of organic inbounds that we were getting from partners, the way that brands were starting to react to, the pitches that we were putting into market. It just felt like the perfect opportunity to, accelerate our growth, create some additional structure to, what we've already built from like a solid core team. And really we feel like to also build out on, Carrie's background and what she's been able to accomplish on the data side was something that really was going to help accelerate what we were trying to accomplish in market.
Talked about the data side for Carrie. Tell me about how each of your skill sets complement each other, and maybe how did that fit into telling the story as you were going out to these investors trying to bring in some capital?
I'll start again there. I think groups that are investing in the youth sports market, I think we're a very unique set of individuals. My background has been in the youth and amateur sports space for the last 15 plus years as an operator. So we have a very, very good pulse at a grassroots level as far as who these operators are, how they move, how they breathe, how the industry works. And I think we structure our organization to be able to have the most success there. Carrie really is a unicorn in this space because of her background and ability to bring data into a space that has potentially been viewed as unsophisticated. I think a lot of the operators, myself included, are very, very good at operating events, and what Carrie's able to layer in with also a great understanding, being a former athlete herself, of how this space moves and a passion to continue to drive this space forward is super unique.
It's funny. Mark and I think both call each other unicorns, and I think we both take each experience. And they both are foundational to obviously what we're building. But since Mark quickly bragged about me, what I'd say for what Mark didn't touch on is his decades plus long experience in youth sports. Conversely, where my experiences might be unique to the youth sports side, his experience is extremely unique to the sponsorship and the investment side. Is not a lot of leaders of businesses have in the youth sports ecosystem have a wealth and depth of knowledge of how the sausage is made and how all of the pieces come together. And I think our secret sauce as Base is that we've got two different perspectives that are coming together and marrying nicely into this space, where Mark's got incredible network, incredible knowledge, and incredible experience over a significant period of time in youth sports. And I'm bringing, a little bit more of the traditional sponsorship lens with the experience I've had at Nielsen and in the college and pro worlds, and bringing that perspective into what the youth space honestly truly deserves. I mean, one of the things that we talk about, and I'm sure we'll dive into, as we continue talking here, but we talk a great deal about is that the youth sports ecosystem is larger and has a arguably more valuable demographic than most other, I would venture to say, both professional sports, college sports, and entertainment spaces certainly do. So what it really was missing, and what Base filled the gap for, is an understanding of how to centralize and break down the fragmentation of ecosystem as it existed so that brands can take advantage of all that these incredible operators have built in the youth sports ecosystem. And so I know we'll get into a little bit more about, what our business is, how we operate, and how we serve, but really I think our foundation and what led to our raise is, this marrying of two very different skill sets where we both have an extremely dedicated and shared passion for the audience we serve, and coming together to find really powerful ways to serve that audience.
What is a misconception that people have about the commercialization of youth sports right now?
Depends who you're asking. If you're asking an operator, their misconception is often that big foot traffic leads to big dollars. And it should, and we should get there. But the major misconception is that just because you have a lot of people on your facility or at your event, you deserve a big payout. Brands have every right to be serviced and have value for the dollars they invest. It's not just hanging a sign. It's not just, paying a big fee to be on site. They're looking for partners and they're looking for valuable delivery on the investment that they're making. And what their KPIs are, differ by brand and by objective. But on the operator side, I think that's the misconception. On the brand side, I think the biggest misconception is that this space is unsophisticated and doesn't have value to serve. I think, like I mentioned, you can't find me a household income higher than what we've got in the families that we serve. If you're a CPG brand, we have mom on lockdown, and you're not going to find mom in any sports arena with the attention span she's got at a youth sports event for Junior or Susie. And if you're, a finance organization that wants a B2B network, the Youth Sports Network is spending hundreds of millions of dollars every year and is constantly reevaluating their service providers. So there are ways to build partnerships that are unique and different. And it's not all just, B2C. There's every level of opportunity to make an influence and make an impact if you're a brand in this space. It's just working with a group like Base where we can help you unlock that and then scale it. That's what we're trying to do, and find groups that are willing to take their first shot into youth sports and see the value that can be unlocked.
It's not just a decision like a light switch to turn on sponsorships. It's not, hey, we want to create a sponsorship department, go and deals start flowing in. It really is a mindset shift of we're going to position ourselves to be valuable for brands in order to hit their KPIs and objectives. And I think the groups that have a better understanding of that allow us to move dollars much more efficiently in a much higher clip than those that are viewing brands as like you should partner with us versus like we should partner together.
Right. And you guys work with both sides, correct? You work with the operator and the brand side. As somebody who doesn't know a whole lot about the world of advertising, let's take one side of it. When you work with a brand, are they saying we are going to give you this much budget and you are going to go out and be the buyer and actually place those dollars into XYZ property? Or where does that relationship start and end? I guess, like, what is the depth of that engagement when you're working with you know, whatever. I saw Dude Wipes on your website, for example. Take one example brand.
Is we try to understand what problems in marketing are brands trying to solve, and how can we help them understand that they can use the youth sports ecosystem to solve those problems. So, for example, Invisalign is trying to get to a younger audience when, teeth choose Invisalign over braces. You're talking young teen, maybe 8 to 16, and larger household income because this is obviously a premier product. And they're trying to create leads for dentists that they work with all across the country. So they've got to find a unique way to do that. And so what we did with Invisalign, for example, is partnered them with a series, multiple dance events across the country where they brought a dentist chair. The dancers are athletes. The dancers came, entered in contact information, including zip code, sat down, got a teeth scan. All of this is because, if you are an athlete that's attended a non-scholastic travel club sports event, which is that ecosystem we focus on, you realize there's dwell time of anywhere between, 3 to 9 hours. Our average downtime at a youth sports event is 5.5 hours. And so the kids have to do something when, they're not competing, when they're not dancing, when they're not on the field. And so At these dance events, they came, they got their teeth scanned. Those scans immediately went to dentists in their zip code so that Invisalign was able to create lead gen for their network. In addition to having this incredible, they had a confidence wall, they had an Instagram station, they had giveaways. So it's incredible experience for the athletes and larger long tail opportunity. Was the problem we solved is finding one centralized hub to get to a significant number of teenagers that were in their exact demographic that could be decision makers with their parents to be informed and be deciding on, product to purchase decisions. So our objective is find brands, understand what their game is in marketing, in consumer engagement, in education, and then help them understand how they can better leverage the youth sports ecosystem to serve those objectives.
That's an amazing activation, the Invisalign thing.
It
I mean, that
was.
It's a lot of work. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
should send you some pictures. It's really cool to see, all these kids get, and the dentist thing is obviously great for the brand, but all of the other excitement that comes with it to serve the kids, the athletes, their parents, give them a great experience on site when they're doing nothing. There was a full lounge built. I mean, it's really, there's ways that brands can do well by doing good in this system.
well, I can't imagine how many activation ideas you can come up with when you actually think about how much time at these youth sports events for anyone. I know, Carrie, you were a D1 lacrosse player. Mark, I know you played baseball at West Virginia. I'm sure you experienced it on your way up. The amount of sitting around and waiting in downtime where you are trapped inside of a gym on a baseball diamond at a, 7-on-7 tournament, it's insane. It's the majority of your time. You're sitting around and talk about captive. I mean, like, there's nothing else to do. I might go get my Invisalign, teeth molding done out of boredom. Like, there's there's nothing else going on. Talk
You're
about
absolutely right. And sorry,
no,
but
no. Go
that's
ahead, Mark.
most
Go
the
ahead.
thesis, really part of the thesis of us starting the company. Again, my background was on the youth and amateur landscape. So I was managing and operating these events where, again, we saw parents sitting on site for 3-4 days at a time, 4 or 5 hours a day. I'll say it, watching very bad baseball. And I just knew if somebody was there, right, like exactly what you were saying, like they would engage, but was hesitant to start a company just off of like my knowledge of managing these events. And that's why Carrie kind of came in at the perfect time as the perfect business partner, because it wasn't just an operator saying, hey, we have these families. It was us saying we have these families, but also Carrie bringing in the ability to prove it out through a case studies, through like data and analytics that we're capturing throughout all of these different events. So once we're able to kind of prove that out, back to your original question, like I think we spent the last couple of years as being educators on both sides, on the facility and operator side of like how to make yourself valuable, how to position yourself in market, how do we sell them in market, and then on the brand side of like what youth sports actually is, because it's extremely valuable. But I think the terms of like fragmented and unsophisticated were constantly just like floating out there. And I think us being able to solve for those two major issues has, proven valuable to everybody involved.
When you onboard or you have your first call with an operator or a venue, when there is low hanging fruit where you're thinking, let's immediately start here, is the first spot where these people are just not getting like throughput maximization of just the inventory available across an entire event? Like, where you're saying, guys, it's not just signs in the outfield, it's the signups on the website and the parking lot and the like. Is that kind of the first step where you walk them through, hey, just so you know, let's do a holistic look at your entire operation here and try to fill some gaps? Or take me through what maybe a first deep dive would look like when you evaluate a new client.
Our operators are really good at running events and facilities. I mean, we have the benefit that Mark's network has allowed us to almost largely hand select what's in our portfolio. We get requests to be represented regularly. And I think it's because we care deeply about supporting those operators in seeing success, and because this ecosystem's continuing to grow really quickly. But yeah, we absolutely talk about what is value and what is valuable. We think a sponsorship or a partnership should be omni-channel, be able to serve some level of experiential, some level of digital, and some level of brand development and brand awareness. And what that looks like depends on the operator and the levers that they can pull in order to serve the brand. So yeah, they might not be aware that the registration platform that they have, because every mom has to go through it, drives value. But to the same effect, they might not own their registration platform, and that might be an asset that we can sell against. So yeah, we certainly do an inventory analysis. We also do a little bit of consulting with groups that may not be quite ready to sell yet. Either they haven't done their own inventory analysis, they might have such a large portfolio, they need a little bit of help weeding through what is valuable and what's not. We also want to make sure we understand the demographics of each profile of each operator we work with. So, um, we can understand if we're going after a Toyota or a Lexus, right? What is the household income? What's the size? What is that facility or that event group represent, and who's a good potential fit? We do a lot of first party research in order to determine that and be able to break that down. For example, we know on the larger scope, volleyball and lacrosse are the sports that have the highest household income of all of the ones, in our portfolio. Lacrosse is number one, volleyball is right nipping at the heels of that. But we're talking over 200,000, where average household income in the United States is, 86 to $90,000. So we're talking more than twice that of average household incomes. And then as you scale sports, you see that fluctuate, be it basketball on, sort of that lower side, and then soccer somewhere in the middle, and, fill it in. We can certainly do that with all of the sports. But that allows us, once we have that knowledge, once we do that research with our operators, or, do a research project with them so we can better understand their portfolio, it allows us more power when we go to market to have a data-driven conversation with a brand so that we can hit their KPIs and we can show them that, whatever their goals and objectives are, we can make sure that they're partnering with the right organizations to achieve those.
Talk about you mentioned doing well while doing good while doing well in this business. I talked to Cameron Korab on the podcast, who you guys probably know from Youth Sports Business Report and Play Up Partners. And we were just talking about how it's not to say there aren't some bad actors in the youth sports space and people who are trying to squeeze every dollar and honestly doing it backwards, where they're just raising prices rather than trying to do the guy said on that episode. I was like, let capitalism do its thing and let's get some commercial subsidies basically come into these sports that actually lowers the barrier of entry for more participation and more kids to be able to do these travel teams and youth sports events. Tell me about how the commercial side can open up more doors in youth sports when this is all done properly.
I'll start, and then I know Carrie has some good comments here as well. Carrie and I were both athletes. We believe, and we can have a whole another hour or two talking about the importance of sport, whether it's physically, emotionally, societally, just how we believe sports are important. We do see there being, in some instances, a barrier of entry. And I think that is something that drives Carrie and I daily. Again, a lot of the partnerships that you'll see through Base Sports Group, especially moving forward, are to create different levels of access to lower that barrier of entry. I think brands want that. I think teams want that. I think the parents want that. I think it just creates a better experience all around. And I think if we can continue to do that, there can be just like a great shift and even more dollars entering the space, because you're going to get more athletes playing. You're going to get more visibility. And again, who doesn't love a good positive story of, sports that and wins that come out of it? So I think that's, again, as we raise some capital, as we continue to drive brands in the space, you're going to see some stuff come out of more of those situations that we can continue to build those like positive stories and experiences.
Yeah, I think my opinion is, and I've been doing since this conversation has made its way into the mainstream, largely due to what's happening on Capitol Hill. I've done a lot of thinking about this, and I think Base built our business with a strong foundation of understanding how to work with small business owners and low margin businesses and how to add value to what they have built. And youth sports, historically and still today, largely is run by small business owners that are running low margin businesses. And yes, there are private equity and venture is looking at this space and moving in, but the majority of our actors are doing a service by creating a place to play when realistically government and private and nonprofits that want to serve this space can't keep up with it. And so these businesses are offering a place for these kids to continue to develop and continue to play. And it's not worth and it's not fair to demonize, these small business owners who at some point are going to be looking for an exit. At some point are going to be looking to scale their business because it's America and that's what we all want to do. And that's okay and that's good. It's going to serve our ecosystem, everybody who's involved, to see more of our businesses find ways to scale. And yes, you're right. There have been bad actors but the vast majority are looking for really good ways to serve families and kids while continuing to find a way to build their businesses. Can it be continuously improved by commercial dollars flowing into this space and lowering those costs and creating better experiences on site? Absolutely. And that's what Base is really excited about is, we want to help our small business owners all throughout the country who are running these incredible businesses serving families and kids by, layering in commercial. The other last piece as I go on this slight political rant is there are a lot of individuals on Capitol Hill that have major corporate PACs because they take business dollars in order to achieve what they're trying to achieve. With sports, arguably, if you're going to try and exclude an opportunity to exit or exclude an opportunity for investment at a high value from private dollars, they should be asking for businesses, corporations and businesses to invest back into youth sports because the economic impact that youth sports creates on all of the communities it serves, and this information is widely publicized, is astronomical. We're talking upwards and close to a $70 billion industry in the next few years. Right now, it's teetering around 40 billion. But a lot of that is because of the travel. I mean, rental cars, airfare, restaurants, hotels.
Yeah.
All of those industries should be investing back into youth sports right now because they're benefiting and profiting off of it. So we're looking forward to that conversation on Capitol Hill and that conversation in this ecosystem, and welcoming all of those brands into youth sports as investors, and as sponsors because it these small business owners that are building incredible experiences for athletes and parents, if they want to lower costs, they want to lower fees, they want better experiences for these communities on site, but the money's got to come from somewhere. And so we're continuing to develop that profile. Groups like Invisalign, offering great experiences on site are a great example. Honey Stinger, we've done a great deal with them. They offer samples to every athlete and parent that comes to an event where they're activating and they're looking to do more. There are great brands out there that are taking a lead, but we're excited about the future where more brands come and step up.
Well said. I'm curious what your relationship is, or maybe the way that you engage with some of these consolidators and like roll up kind of groups. Think of Unrivaled, think of, Curved Baseball, I think is another one. There are plenty you could rattle off. Do you guys speak with those groups and think we're going to go top down and partner at that level and then get involved with all the properties that sit underneath that umbrella? Or how are you kind of, playing the game as it evolves with more and more activity like that, with people buying up a lot of these properties and creating these holdcos?
We have great relationships, honestly, with all of those groups, partially because we've had great relationships with some of the groups that they're rolling up. But again, just kind of understanding this ecosystem for such a long time. I think one of the reasons that Base Sports Group is having success is because of Carrie's background and because of the analytical approach that we're taking to partnerships. I don't think we're overvaluing the industry. I think we're putting together true partnerships to really, in some sense, set a price point of the value of the youth sports space because of what we're bringing in from a knowledge on the operator side, the knowledge of the actual demographics and case studies that like we're putting together. And then we're going to continue to build, the value of the space together. I think us being boots on the ground in this industry is valuable to these different roll-ups, because of what we're seeing in so many different areas.
Whether it's a small business owner, whether it's a private equity backed organization, I I believe most people in this space want what's best for youth sports, for parents and kids and athletes. So everybody, we want to work with anybody that is as passionate about serving that good demographic as we are, and we'll bring in brands that are going to add value financially, experientially, but add value to those ecosystems. And so, I wouldn't say we don't care who it is. We do care. We care about finding good partners and operators that can be good partners. So, yeah, like Mark said, we've got great relationships with all up and down the scale of size and scope of youth sports, and are continuing to develop those relationships to find great partnerships.
So, as two people who have worked in sports and sports marketing over the years, I wanted a little bit of a zoom out, like history lesson. When did each of you start to feel the snowball maybe start to roll downhill when it came to investment in youth sports? Because now everyone's talking about it. Now it's in the Wall Street Journal. Now it's like mainstream. There's no like the early adopters have been in, but it's past that point. But when was it that you started to feel it, and what do you look back at and attribute to be the things that triggered it?
I could jump in first. Mark and I, our biggest joke that we've now told, I think we've been on the conference circuit for, I don't know, 6 months or so now. And um, our most overtold joke is that we started our company too early, which I think we both agree we did. We started and launched Base in 2021 because of, I think, a shared personal love for this space, knowledge, and his forethought. He saw what was gonna happen, I think, before most people in this space did, and this is really his brainchild. So I would say 21 was too early. I would say, I don't know, Mark, what you'd say. I would probably say the snowball started maybe 24, realistically, probably in the last 8 to 12 months. I don't know what you think.
It's a really good and interesting question, right? Like I knew much earlier on, probably like 2013, 14, when I was at USA Baseball, I knew that youth sports was kind of heading in a direction of big business. We talk about all these conferences that we've been going to for, again, I've been going for like 15 years. And I remember seeing, it was before SFC was SFC, it was SFA, it was like the Event Connects of the world, a lot of these operators. And when you start, again, getting a better handle of the economic impact that Carrie was talking about earlier, that these like youth sporting events have on these communities, and how the grand parks of the world were being built just to literally like build like communities in areas that like there weren't communities. You start to see like a business side of it that I think was exciting. And then as the years went along and you start seeing, right, like the dollars that were being invested into youth sports, not necessarily by private equity, but by different like cities and municipalities or private developers, because they saw, um, I actually hate the term, like, if you build it, they will come. I don't think that is true. But the people that, again, give a lot of credit to Jason and the team at SFC of understanding like, hey, these can be community drivers. You can build homes and ecosystems around like these youth sports facilities. I think then is when I really noticed that there was going to be an opportunity here. And then as Carrie mentioned, right, like just like the last 18, 24 months, has really kind of shifted with, private equity coming in and the different direction that, it's been shifting. But youth sports has always been big business. I think that's why like the groups that are investing in the people that have been here and built the relationships for such a long time are the ones that are going to come out, and have a lot of success. But yeah, obviously like the last like 8 to 12 months has been, a lot different than the last 8 to 12 years.
How much of that do you think you can tie to NIL? and the changing collegiate landscape, are parents spending and the data would tell you, and apparently Carrie's the very data-driven one here, so maybe you have a concrete answer. I've just speculated and talked about this with friends of mine of like, are parents spending a significant, more money than they were even when I was in high school because they're thinking this is not only an investment where I'm not going to pay 50 grand a year in tuition, but actually not only am I not going to pay that, depending on how much of a superstar my kid is, there's definitely a power law in NIL earnings, but my kid might actually make six figures himself. And that's like more than just the ROI on savings. Is that changing the psychology for parents, which is leading to more spending and being more gung-ho about going to more events? Or is this, trying to connect two dots that are further away than I think?
Well, I think, Brent, correct me if I'm wrong, you're probably grounding a little bit of that perspective as being a football player.
Yeah,
Um,
which is why I called
mm,
out the power law thing is so real. Even within football, like the type quality of college football player I would have made $4 playing college football. So I would have been it wouldn't have
right.
changed things for me. But I'm curious if it even just like subconsciously is maybe changing the way people think about it.
I don't know if I would agree totally. I think football, basketball, the power sports, sure. I think there's, a little bit of that. But, when NIL first started, one of the most valuable, and still to this day, I'd have to check my data on this. I'm not as read up on this as I probably should be, but volleyball and gymnastics on the women's side were generating on average a similar return for athletes as, a lot of power sports were getting. And I think a big piece of that was because the athletes in those sports understood the power of social media and how to brand themselves and position themselves. And so they were creating an ecosystem where they were delivering back value. The packs on the collegiate side that were, paying out, and of course the regulations of that has all changed, but we're paying out athletes on the basketball and football side hadn't existed yet. So is that, regulation is still constantly shifting. And so I think how that's impacting the youth level is going to similarly continuously shift. Mark's obviously chomping at the bit to share an opinion, so I'll turn it over. But I don't think it's the driver of why youth sports is what it is. I think youth sports organically is delivering value in a way to the families, and it's naturally aggregating and creating ecosystems differently than NIL. But I'll let Mark jump in.
Yeah, I again, personal opinion, I don't necessarily think it was NIL, but I think it was the allure of a college scholarship. I
Yeah.
think you started to see club teams being created. You started to see specialization because of the idea of a college scholarship. And I think that's really where youth sports took a massive shift, kind of going from recreational, a lot of like local opportunities to these large scale club based national tournaments because it was the allure of, hey, if you go to X, Y, and Z tournament, like there's going to be 10 college coaches there. And there started to become this obsession with becoming like a college athlete, right? I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. I think that like motivators are always great things, but I think sports really started to see a shift whenever that mindset changed. And again, you could probably do not have any data on this, but you could probably attribute that to like even like ESPN and some of these sporting channels of like elevating these events where being a college athlete was maybe that much more attractive. Getting a college scholarship and being able to put that on your social media channel was like you got that many more likes, right? I'm not really sure where it was, but I think it it's probably better served to focus on like the college scholarship aspect versus maybe some of the NIL opportunities to attribute to that shift.
And one
Makes
of the
sense.
difference that, Brent, you might again, I don't know what your experience was in football. I'm not gonna make any assumptions as to what your personal journey was. But, most team sports, the way they get recruited is by going to, and you probably inherently know this, but just in case someone may not, is by going to select tournaments. College coaches can only see so many athletes. They can only travel so many times. It's just there are 1, 2, there's only 3, 4 coaches on most teams. So there's only so many events where they can go to and see talent. So that funnel, that narrow opportunity is what created the travel sports ecosystem because athletes have to go to get seen. Yes, you can send in tape, and we all know that that is an avenue, but there's a difference of being seen by a coach versus having your tape seen. And that ecosystem of trying to get seen by college coaches and being where the college coach is, to Mark's point, in order to hopefully be seen and get a scholarship or to get a spot on the team, I think is what really created that. Football is sort of its own unique beast, and the ecosystem and recruiting is a little bit different. But baseball, lacrosse, volleyball, soccer, softball, all of these are tournament based ecosystems where college coaches go spend weekends on site, see a large swath of talent, and head home. And that's what I think, to Mark's point, is what drove this growth. NIL is just a layer in. And I think that system, I mean, I played in that system, and to date myself, it's been 2 decades. It has become more sophisticated and grown, but I played in that system and I got recruited out of traveling to a ecosystem. So the groundwork is way predates NIL. It's just grown as the interest in going after those coveted few scholarships and going after those coveted few seats on teams has continued to grow.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, a lot of those combines and showcases and tournaments in the off season, I remember athletes and kids basically feeling more pressure at those than they did on their game days, right, during the actual season.
Yeah.
So spot on. And I know we're out of time here. Last question. I'll make it a two-parter. Maybe one of you can take one and one can take the other. Kind of in summary, or maybe reinforcing the point, what is the pitch to a brand as for why they need to have a youth sports marketing strategy where, a strategic dollar in youth sports can take you from A to B? And then also reiterating the point, what are three categories of businesses who should be reaching out to you guys? You mentioned CPG earlier, but what are three big ones?
Sure, I'll start with the three big ones. I might monopolize this element of the conversation, but
These are
um,
this is your wheelhouse. These are
yeah,
yours. Yeah.
I think CPG is definitely one. Finance, and this is really Mark's passion, is that finance needs to be in this space and needs to be in this space yesterday, because these are kids that are opening their first bank accounts. These are parents that are saving for college. NIL is a constant conversation, but there should be an education for athletes and families to prepare for what might be an NIL conversation and what might not be, and having a real, true, honest conversation with them. Those all absolutely should be in this space. And then I'd say, so I guess sort of depends on how you define CPG. If we leave CPG as a broad space, then I'll go auto as our last space. And auto in insurance, auto in car, auto in the broadest sense. These are a lot, as we mentioned, high household incomes. We've got a lot of first time car buyers. We got a lot of first time drivers coming into this space. We got a lot of parents, their families are growing if we're talking on the younger end, and they're going to need to be making new car decisions. So I've sort of picked that as my third key decision maker in this space. And then what we're having conversations with brands on right now that's been particularly exciting is, well, we all know World Cup is coming up here in a couple weeks. That ground game is largely over, but Olympics, particularly, given the fact that it's in the United States, there's a lot of new American sports. Of course, we mentioned I'm a lacrosse player, but lacrosse is back in the Olympics.
Yeah, right.
And the ground game brands should be preparing for, whether they're an Olympic sponsor or they want to compete in a guerrilla market with Olympic sponsors by engaging the grassroots of all of these Olympic sports: baseball, softball, lacrosse, volleyball, basketball. You mean, you pick it, flag football for the first time. I
Yeah.
mean, let's get
Yeah.
excited about that.
Yeah.
Now is the time to start reaching those grassroots athletes and their parents and the decision makers surrounding them. Now is the time to be budgeting, really budgeting. 27 is the time to be activating, laying that grassroots ground game. And then 28 is the time to be scaling that. And so pick a brand, pick a category. There's really nobody that the Olympics can't touch and the Olympic sports can't touch. Now's the time to start having the conversation of, We're really excited about being the host of the Olympics. We're really excited about what sports can do. We all know that's the story of Olympics, right? What sports can do for an athlete and the way that sports can elevate an athlete in really exciting and new ways. And so any brand that wants to build a unique and valuable grassroots in preparing for LA28, that's what some of the exciting conversations that we're starting to have on we reach 30 million consumers in 26 sports in 47 states. No one else, I think, in youth sports can say that. And we want to work with the brands that want to make an impact in every single one of their lives in really powerful ways.
Yeah, I'll wrap it up quickly. But if brands want to connect with moms and head of households, it's through youth sports. I know we've all heard it before, but mom's favorite team isn't the college or university she went to. It isn't the major league team. It isn't the NBA team. It isn't the NFL team or professional soccer team in their area. It's their kids' team. So engaging with the parents and the athletes at a grassroots level where they're training and competing, the affinity that it creates, the awareness that it creates, and the connection to the brand that it creates is why all brands should be engaging at this level.
All right. Well, Carrie, Mark, thank you so much. I know you guys are incredibly busy, so I'm glad we found the time. And congratulations again on the raise and all that you have laying ahead. I know it's going to be a very busy summer for you both.
Appreciate and congrats to you too. I mean, we follow along very intently. Love listening and watching the clips and the podcasts, and the quality of people that you're getting on is really incredible. So congrats to you as well. But thank you. I personally really enjoyed this.
Agreed.
All right. Thank you both. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Brent.